you go to school and you go to college and you take classes and you study with friends and you do your assignments and you go to lectures and then you do extracurricular stuff and you go to club meetings, you do this, you do that. And going to college is actually a process made up of many separate pieces. Well, the job search is exactly like that. And I think that's a really difficult concept for a lot of students coming out of college to appreciate, because what is in your mind is that this is what the job search will look like. You'll go on your computer, you'll search job boards for great job postings. You'll apply to them online from the comfort of your home with your coffee right there and wearing your sweatpants, and you'll be invited into interviews. And that is literally not how people get jobs. I think maybe 10 years ago, it was how probably 70% of college students got jobs, but it's just not the case anymore, because you need to work an entire process. And so a lot of you have a set of handouts, which will also be made available electronically to you. So if you don't have a handout, a package of handouts, now would be a good time for you to switch seats and move next to someone who does, just if you want to be able to glance at the handouts as we're going through. And I hope you all got a index card, because that's going to be important too. So, this is, don't worry, this is the densest slide. This is what we're going to go through. These are all the elements of the job search. So first we'll do a brief look at what I think 10 key success factors are. So if you open your handout package, on the left is that's the handout where we'll start. It's 10 key success factors. So if there's any handout that you might want to tape to your bathroom mirror, that could be a candidate for it, because it outlines all the pieces of the process that you need to be working. We're going to talk about the absolutely crucial first step, and that is identify what you love to do, those are your skills, what you love to think about, that's what you love learning about, and what matters to you, your values. The Center for Career and Calling is uniquely prepared to help you with this work. So be sure to take advantage of them. You at SBU are so lucky, because your Center for Career and Calling is one of the best I've ever worked with, and I've worked with a lot. Right after you figure out your ideal job, you have to bring reality into the room. You have to become strategic. Because if your ideal job happens to be something for which there is not much demand, you don't want to go in that direction. So being strategic about your job, your target job or occupation, is the absolutely important next first step. Try to compare your ideal job with fields that are growing, fields that need more candidates, because that's the direction you want to go. Then, after you determine your strategy, you'll develop your narrative, which is how you talk about yourself. Because that's a big part of this process too, is reaching out to people so they can help you. Your positioning, which is what differentiates you, what makes you different from other people in the same applicant pools that you will be in. You've got to be thinking about that early in the process and pushing those differentiating attributes out into your, especially your online profile, so that people early, prospective employers, start understanding what makes this person different. I got a lot of people applying for entry-level accounting jobs. Why do I want this person? You have a whole set of what I call marketing communications tools. These are the marketing of you. We'll go through all of those. I'm going to talk in some depth about networking and informational meetings, which are how between 85 and 95% of college graduates land their first job through the process of networking and conducting informational meetings with people in their target field. Do they get the job because they met someone at a networking event, or they went and did an informational meeting? Do they get the job because of that? Well, what do they get because of that? They get in the interview pool. That's how you get the job. So to get in the interview pool, you have to network and do informational meetings. And this is a very, very big part of the job search, and it's especially challenging for people who are introverted or feel a little less comfortable in groups of people. So I'll give you some tips for that too. At some point, you absolutely will have to look for a job. You have to find job postings, and there are some better places to do that and some less good. And then I'm going to teach you how to use the drawstring strategy so that you start to pull that job closer to you as you identify jobs that would be a good fit for you. I'll briefly prepare you for phone screens and actual job interviews. And then at the end, and I really encourage you to stay till the bitter end, because there are two pieces of great news I'm going to share with you that I truly think you'll appreciate. So first of all, I want to share that you're not the only ones who are stressed about this. Your parents probably are a little stressed, right? So here's, I don't know if you can read that caption, but the parents are saying, we've been thinking a lot about what we want you to do with your life, right? Has anybody kind of had that experience a little bit with your parents? It's a little troubling. And then this father is saying, young man, you better get my priorities straight. What I want to encourage you to do is to acknowledge that your parents really care. Your parents or guardians or whoever it is who has helped launch you and get you to SVU and supported you all the way through your education. It's super important to start the process early of helping them understand your priorities and your process. Because the more they understand what it is you're moving towards and why, and the ways in which you're moving towards it, the more supportive they can be, the less they'll keep pestering you with stupid, annoying questions, which parents are very good at. I have 2 kids, by the way, and I'm very good at those questions. I have a 24-year-old and a 26-year-old, so they're both college graduates. I've honed the art of asking annoying questions. So definitely make sure to think about how you're going to manage your parents in this process. I also think it's never a bad idea to just lower your expectations a little bit. You know, when you get out into the world, it's always sit, stay, heal. It's never think, innovate, be yourself. And so for a lot of people, there can be a little bit of a culture shock when you get into, if any of you have that experience in your summer internships where you get into your job and you're so excited about it, you think you're going to change the world and you're going to make people's lives better, and you realize you're spending a lot of time on your computer and you don't really feel like you're having the impact you want to have. That will change, but when you come out of college, you're going to be in what are called entry-level positions. So just set your expectations appropriately, and then you'll be much more satisfied later when you're in one of those entry-level jobs, and you can start growing from there. Just know that you absolutely will find what I call gold in the job search. So these are people panning for gold, and one guy is saying, of course I hope to find gold, but my real goal is spiritual growth and inner peace. I can assure you, your job searches will be successful. The job market right now for recent college graduates is better than it has been since before 2008, and particularly in Puget Sound, although in other parts of the country it's also very strong. And recent college graduates are looked upon with a special sort of admiration. It's a great time for you to look for a job because you've got this newly minted degree. People want to help you. They want to hire recent college graduates. So, and how many of you think you'll be looking for jobs in Puget Sound? Okay, maybe about half. Okay, So those of you who are looking for a job in Puget Sound have a tremendous advantage because there's a huge network of SPU alumni here. I will say though that for those of you who are moving to Austin or Denver or New York or Boston or San Francisco or wherever it is you're moving, there are SPU alumni there too. And they will be even more excited to hear from you than the SPU alumni here who hear from SPU alumni all the time. So keep that in the back of your mind. The minute you get to your new hometown, reach out to that SPU alumni chapter and start showing up at events and contacting people to introduce yourself. Though your shared alumnihood is a golden key that will open any door for you. So the other, and speaking of annoying questions, what are you going to do with your life? Which I'm guessing, especially if you're a senior, you are hearing this question a lot. I think it's a really annoying question because there's no way you can answer it. So instead of, snapping at the person and saying, this career coach told me there's no way I can answer it. What you want to do is gently say, I know that whatever my next step is will be the best step for me. It'll be a step that involves learning and growing. And as a result, in my first position after college, once I've had that position, I will be learning and growing, and then I'll figure out what the next step is. That's how careers get built the vast majority of the time, unless you are, let's say, a physician or certain kinds of attorneys. But even in the law, it's an iterative process. So remember, this process you're about to undertake of searching for a job is one you'll do multiple times in your life. So learning the tools now is actually kind of a good thing, because you can come back to it, and each time you do it, you'll do it better. So key success factors. I'm only going to go through a couple of them that are listed because most of them are covered in the rest of the presentation. I think it's really important, and I think it's often overlooked, to establish a workspace. Now, most of you, of course, are students, so you know already the best kind of workspace in which you can really thrive and really focus. So I encourage you to be intentional in that same way when it's time to undertake your job search. Have your supplies at hand. One of the supplies I strongly encourage you to have is 3x5 neon index cards. That's why I've given you all one. So once you've graduated, you started looking for a job, go to Bartell's or Office Depot or Amazon or whatever and get a little stack of these babies. Because what you're going to do 5 days a week is write down on one of these index cards the 3 most important things you're going to do for your job search that day. This is a non-digital coaching tool, and of all the coaching tools I use, this is the single most effective. What I do is I ask clients to fill out the card the night before. So the night before, let's say it's Monday night. You're in week 2 of your job search. It's Monday night. I want you to sit down, think about what the most important things you're going to do tomorrow for your job search. Write them on this little card, and then put it somewhere. In your laptop carry bag, or tape it to your bathroom mirror, or wherever you're going to put it. And what happens is our brains are remarkable things. Your brain overnight will be preparing and getting you ready to absolutely kill it on those 3 things. You'll wake up so ready to go. I also strongly recommend using morning hours to do the pieces of your job search that you find most difficult. For a lot of people, that's writing cover letters. For some other people, it's reaching out for meetings. Whatever it is, tackle those unpleasant tasks in the morning, because people are usually they have better willpower and better stamina. While we're going through today's presentation, if I say something and you think, oh my gosh, that sounds super important, write it down on one of these cards. And if you leave here with 3, those will be 3 good starts for you. second key success factor is to know who is on your transition team. So your transition team should not be many people. It should be 1, 2, 3, at the most 4 people who totally have your back. It's probably your parents. It's probably someone from the Center for Career and Calling. It's probably your best friend or your roommate or housemate. But keep that circle really close, because those are people you're going to want to share the bad stuff about your job search. You're going to be like, oh, nobody's replying to my emails, or oh, I wanted that job so much and I thought I had it, but I must have done something in the interview. So that's what you share with your transition team, is the good stuff, the bad stuff, and everything in between. Because outside of that very small group of people, I want you to uniformly, deliberately, and proactively project a positive attitude. This is incredibly important. So if Tina, I talked to 4 people before this presentation. So if Tina is starting to explore accounting positions, accounting roles, and IT system management roles in Seattle via informational meetings, and someone runs into Tina and says, hey Tina, how's your job search going? Even if she's having a bad day or someone hasn't responded, what I want her to say is, oh my gosh, I am learning so much about the accounting field by going and talking to people. There's so much opportunity in Seattle. We're so lucky that we have such a broad scope of businesses. I feel it's challenging, it's hard, I'm spending a lot of time on it, but it's really fun and I'm learning so much. So she's going to emphasize the fun aspects, the learning aspects, and the fact that she's kind of jazzed about it. This is because if you're standing on a train station, on a train platform, and 2 trains pull in, and 1 train is full of gloomy, glowering, evil-looking people who are not really looking down, kind of looking down, they're not smiling and reversing, and another train pulls in and it's full of positive, happy, curious people. Which train do you want to get on? The happy train, right? So you need to be a happy train as you go through your job search. People get on board happy trains. They avoid misery trains. This is a really interesting fact about human beings. Osama bin Laden had a very powerful quote about that, but I stopped quoting him because it was too horrible to have Osama bin Laden quote in my presentation. Fundamentally, it's free for you to have a good attitude, but it costs you big time if you don't have one. If you have trouble with this particular piece, I've given you a list of what research shows helps to promote a positive attitude. So that very first one is a physical signal to your body. Do it right now. Smile, take a deep breath, and kind of gently push your shoulders back, and you'll almost right away feel better. This is another tip. I'm jumping ahead in the presentation a little bit, but if you're someone who gets nervous in interviews or when you're at a networking event, slow your breathing down. Take long, slow breaths. And it's really important to practice this before you get into such an event because you might hyperventilate, fall on the floor or something. So definitely practice this at home. Take long, slow breaths in through your nose and then long, slow breaths out. That instantly sends a message to your nervous system that everything's fine here, and it calms you down. It reduces agitation. Also helps you keep that smile on your face. Use positive phrases, as I already mentioned with the Tina example. Start thanking people. I've seen some wonderful articles recently about how instead of saying no, if someone says, hey, can you help me with this? Instead of saying no, say, thank you. Thanks for thinking of me to help you. Normally I would love to, but I can't right now. So substitute a no with a thank you and start thanking people. If you don't have a killer thank you habit, you should develop it really soon because people are going to be helping you in to the job search process. Keeping a gratitude journal, cognitively identifying the good aspects of, say, not getting a job in Redmond if you live in Fremont, and when a problem or challenge arises, moving quickly to solve it. So the other key success factor is career assessment. And this book, What Color Is Your Parachute? I think this is a 2016 edition, there's a 2017 edition. This is a book that if you've never read it, now is a really good time to read it. It's something that everyone should read at least once in their life, because Richard Bowles, who's kind of the father of all career coaches, really understands how to map people to jobs. And reading this book will give you a sense of self-understanding that will really be good for you. Also use the resources of the Center for Career Development there. So the remainder of the key success factors are covered later in the talk. So we're going to go on to our next handouts. And the next handouts are the two blue ones. And although I wanted to just briefly present to you my own career assessment, because if it might help you, I figured I might as well give you an additional tool in addition to what the Center for Career Calling is giving you. So when people love their work, they're more resilient. They get colds and flu on average at half the rate that people who don't love their work. And when they do get sick, they recover in about half the time. That's pretty astounding. They're just generally more resilient. They tap into a lot more creativity in their work lives because they're not just kind of filling a role. They're thinking about that role and bringing their creativity to it. And of course, they find more meaning and satisfaction. So it's absolutely worth it to find work you love. Well, what are the components? What makes someone love their work? When they're naturally good at it, when their mind naturally turns to it in off times, and when your work aligns with your values. So I developed a career assessment tool, which is basically, it's a Venn diagram, it's very simple, where you map into this Venn diagram your favorite skills, which are in the doing circle, your favorite topics in the thinking circle, and your values in the believing circle. And then you look to see, okay, if I were doing my favorite things most days, and I was learning about what I really am interested in, and what I was doing aligned with my values, what would I be doing? What is a good fit for you? You don't want to end up like this poor dog in a company full of cats. This is a good HR cartoon for you, actually. I have some great HR cartoons. And the other thing that's important at this point, because for some of you, you have a hobby. Anybody here have a hobby that they've thought about turning into a career? In the way back.
Photography.
Okay. So that's an especially important one to apply strategic thinking to.
Yeah.
Because of course now everyone thinks they're a photographer, right?
Exactly.
So, but I would say that it's worth, if you can map photography onto something else you're passionate about and sort of combine the two, you might still be able to pull it off, but it's challenging. So here's a very smart dog who said, I really like chasing sticks, but I don't think I want to make a career out of it. So now is a good time to start thinking about any hobbies you might have that could or might maybe not be a career for you. So basically, as I said, your ideal job is found in the convergence of those three circles. The other thing that might help some of you is that at your stage of life, the most important circle to pay attention to is the thinking circle. That's because thinking is about what you like to learn about, what you're curious about, the topics you could explore indefinitely. We are in a knowledge economy. This means that people with knowledge are more powerful actors in that economy. 11.1 million jobs have been created since 2006 in the last 10 years, and 99% of those jobs went to people with a college degree or some college. That's a powerful corroboration of the fact that we are in a knowledge economy. So at the beginning of your career, where you want to be, the clues for you, you want to be where people higher and older than you are interested in the same stuff you are, because then you can talk to them about how they grew their career. So is it Rebecca? So Rebecca is exploring the field of human resources. So she's interested in why people do what they do and working with people to make them happier in organizations, let's say. I'm just making this up. Probably close enough. She definitely wants to be in, as her first step in her career, it would be preferable for her to find a lower level job in an HR department than a higher level job in some other area, like facilities management, let's say. Because what she wants to do is surround herself by other people who have built careers in human resources so she can learn from them. And this second handout, the dark blue one, which you can review later, gives you some real people. So I changed their names. All of these were college graduates that I worked with. I've given you their doing, the contents of their doing circle, their thinking circle, their moving circle, and what that led to as a possible job. And that should stimulate your thinking for you. So, as I mentioned, the minute you identify your ideal job, you have to develop a strategy. And strategy is about context, what's growing, and what's feasible for you. Because you have to make sure that what you're moving towards is actually feasible for you. And yes, try to find a career that won't be obsolete before your student loan is paid off. That's a very good advice. So fundamentally, it's matching your strengths to employers' needs so that they feel like they need you, and moving towards growing areas. So I've given you some samples of your strengths, and this strategy handout is something you can work with later. You always build your strategy largely on your strengths. So I've given you some examples of strengths. One of the things likely all of you will have after you graduate is flexibility in your personal life. People who are a little older like me, or even in their 20s and even their 30s or 40s, they get hemmed down by commitments. Kids, they can't travel as much. While you're young and free, you definitely want to emphasize how flexible you are and how much you like traveling for certain jobs, I would say. So just think about what your strengths are. And again, you can work with the Center for Career Empowerment. And then you also have to identify your personal realities. And the most important of those is your income floor. So know how low you can go. Before 2008, I would say to my clients, what are your income objectives? I just miss those days so much. What are your income objectives? It sounds so lofty. Now I say to people, what is your income floor? How low can you go? Because employers, starting in 2008, have contracted, and they're not likely, especially in a relatively uncertain political environment, they're not likely to start over-hiring anytime soon. So you need to know what you can live on in the city or cities that you're looking at. So the big things to consider are growing versus shrinking, and also economic opportunities here versus in the towns you're thinking about. Because I'll tell you, right after college, if there's a particular industry that is located in another town, the only one I can think of right now is adaptive recreation. Adaptive recreation as an industry is based, the mecca for it is in Salt Lake City. So if your particular industry or occupation has a center somewhere else, you definitely want to consider moving there because there will be more job opportunities for you. So figure out what's growing, and I apologize, it's a bit of a macabre slide, but it's a bunch of gangsters sitting around thinking, well, yeah, assisted suicide, that would be a growth area for us. So what growth, these are examples of growth areas. Please do not take this as an all-inclusive list. Disaster prevention and recovery, a wide range of healthcare areas, cloud computing, web and software development, web services sales are all pieces of technology that are growing, power generation and clean energy, digital marketing and communications, and then quantitative fields, especially accounting and data analysis, are all growing. This is not an all-inclusive list, but there are ways for you to figure out whether your field is growing or not. And I've listed those on page 2 of your strategy handout, and most particularly the U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Health Outlook Handbook is a great one. But how you're going to do your research is first, research online. And don't go out and start talking to people until you've done your online research. Because you want to ask nuanced questions. You want to ask questions that really help you peel apart the field and figure out where the growing pieces of it. And if you start right away by going out and talking to someone in that field, your questions are not going to be as nuanced as you want them to be. Also, people get on your happy train if you ask nuanced questions. If you ask dumb questions, they're going to let that train go right out of the station. Wave goodbye to you. So make sure to do your research. Then you'll write your strategy statement, and I've given you a worksheet on which to do that here on page 3. And then right after that, you have to figure out how you're going to talk about yourself. And that's what I call your personal narrative. Also known as your elevator pitch, and that's this pale yellow handout. And again, I apologize for going so fast, but I'm trying to get through everything. This needs to be, I'd say, 3 or 4 sentences at most. People have short attention spans, but if someone sees you at a party and says, Rebecca, how are you? What are you thinking about doing? You have about 3 or 4 sentences to capture them and let them figure out how they might be able to help you. You're always going to have an ask. That's one characteristic of the job search process. I hate to tell you. You're always going to have an ask. Once you get your job, you can sit back, put on your sweatpants, watch Netflix, and not ask people for stuff anymore. It's going to be wonderful. So I've given you sections here where you can fill out the 4 parts of your narrative. First is succinct intro. I'm graduating from SPU this spring with a major in psychology. Very important is that second sentence, because it allows that person to home in on what aspect of the field you really like. So Rebecca could then say, I'm particularly interested in human resources and the human element in organizations. So I'm exploring the field of human resources. Do you happen to know, she's going to lurch right into her ask, do you happen to know anyone who works in human resources I could talk to? See how smooth and easy that was? It's just so easy, right? Now, this I'm going to go quickly through, but you'll have it for reference. As I mentioned, you need to know what differentiates you. So positioning, those of you who are business majors and have taken marketing classes, this is a marketing term that means what differentiates a product or service from its competition. You got to think about that at the beginning of the job search process. What your product being introduced to the jobs marketplace, what makes you different? Rebecca, do you have any idea what does make you different? Have you interned in an HR area or done anything related to HR at all?
Not yet. I've taken a lot of communication classes and learned that I love talking to people and helping make their lives better in what situation they're in.
okay? You have to work a little harder to somehow get, you usually want what makes you different to be either some aspect of your expertise or you're learning through some sort of internship or volunteer job, and obviously I don't know you well enough to know what it should be. But all of you should try to map that, and you'll also get feedback on what makes you different when you go and start talking to people. People will say, oh my gosh, Rebecca, you should mention that you worked on the hiring committee for your residence hall. Or, those kinds of things. You go, yeah, right, I'll put that on my resume and my LinkedIn right away. So, and then take care to weave what makes you different into your summary on your resume or your LinkedIn profile. So, and I've bolded here the items that make this guy different. He was trying to relocate to Brazil to work in supply chain logistics. He was a fluent Portuguese speaker. That makes him different from most American guys trying to move to Brazil. He had a degree in Latin American studies and he had work experience in Brazil. He wanted to move to Brazil because he wanted to marry a Brazilian woman. Not a particular one, just a Brazilian woman. I was like, I'm on board. We're going to make this happen for you. It's been 4 years and it hasn't happened yet. I told him he had to invite me to the wedding. Okay, so this is a bit of an aspirational slide, but we're just going to keep moving along, assuming that you've done all those things, and now it's time to start marketing yourself. So the biggest thing there, of course, is your digital footprint. Check your privacy settings, especially on Facebook. This is number one. For many of you, this should be an index card thing. I'm not kidding. Because people forget that they did not they set up their Facebook page so long ago, they forget that it's not private. So be sure to check that. Your LinkedIn profile, I'm going to go through some specific tips on LinkedIn. If you have never taken the time to record a phone greeting, this is also an index card item because recruiters will find you on LinkedIn and they'll call you to add you to a phone screen pool. And when they do, if they get that canned, you have reached 206, blah, 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 they might just hang up. Whereas if they get a vibrant, positive voice saying your name, they'll think, wow, sounds like a really heads-up person. So glad I spotted that profile. And they'll leave a message for you, and then you're on to a good phone screen. Also, answer your phone. I've had so many clients crying in my office because they got a voicemail from a recruiter, and then when they called back or emailed, that person never got back to them. That's because if a recruiter is trying to fill a certain number of phone screen spots, when they get to their number, whether it's 12 or 15, they stop. So if they left a message for you and didn't actually reach you, you've likely missed your chance. So answer your phone. This is a tough one to get used to. Your email signature. This is also important. It makes you look professional to have a signature at the bottom of your email. And it could say something like SP, Seattle Pacific University, class of 2017, or BA 2017 psychology. And then your phone number, your email, and the short link to your LinkedIn profile. And finally, your email address. You want people to know your name. So your email address should be first name dot last name at not Hotmail, not AOL, not Comcast, not Yahoo. This is what recruiters have told me. I'm just messenger here. So Gmail, Outlook, me, Matt, they're live. There are a bunch of other okay ones, Outlook, but your name is a tag that you want people to remember, so it should be first name, last name. So now is a good time to change your email address. You can keep your current email and use that for personal stuff, and then start using your professional email. If you have a very common name, simply append, like let's say your name is John Smith, john.smith206@gmail.com. Or john.smith425, or if you're moving to Colorado, john.smith303 @gmail.com. Just append a 3-digit number to the end and try to stay away from zeros and ones because people often misinterpret those. These are the macro reasons why your online footprint is so important, but I gotta tell you, this is the big one. College graduates, I'm working with 2 right now. One is in Boston, also looking for a job in New York, and one is in San Francisco. They get so many calls from recruiters because LinkedIn markets something called LinkedIn Recruiter, which helps recruiters find you. So this is tremendously valuable. I'm going to quickly go through these LinkedIn tips. You absolutely want a summary in your own voice, first person, and if anybody here familiar with the Muse.com? That's an amazing website for job seekers. Muse.com has everything you could possibly want when you're looking for a job. It has cover letter templates. It has suggestions for how to ask someone to be your reference. It has everything. I recommend that you sign up now to start getting their emails so you get familiar with the resources there. And this is a great place to start. They're templates for writing a LinkedIn summary, and these are not their only, they have some other templates there too. Add a photo. I saw, isn't there a photo booth here today? Yes. So, and smile. In other cultures, a professional photo does not have a smile. In our US culture, if that's where you're planning to stay, you absolutely want to smile. So smile in your professional photo. It should be a headshot, wearing something, kind of professional. And try and be your most dynamic self. Profiles with photos are 7 times more likely to be contacted. Isn't that staggering? So it's totally worth it. Go through some postings of your ideal job. Get 3 or 4 of them, and then comb through them for keywords and phrases that you can weave into your LinkedIn summary, into your LinkedIn profile and into your resume. This is the #1 way you're going to get attention, especially from recruiters, because it's all keywords and phrases searches. And you can learn a lot about this online. There's tons of information on this. Set your settings on LinkedIn so that your entire professional network is not alerted every time you make a teensy-tiny change to your profile. Because that's kind of annoying, Richard has just added a skill. It's like, no, I don't care, no way. Also create a custom, shorter URL for your LinkedIn profile. And you can find the directions to do that here, because you want the link to your LinkedIn profile to show both at the top of your resume and at the bottom of your signature. Because a lot of people who get an email from you will be like, oh, this person sounds really interesting. I'm going to go take a look. You'd be surprised how often hiring managers are like, I'm going to go take a look and see what that person looks like. So they click to your LinkedIn profile. So customizing it gives you a shorter block of type. So you don't have to paste this long link at the top of your resume. So that's definitely worth doing. Also think that if you've had an internship or 2, get someone to write a reference for you for the most recent internship you've had and then the one just before that. Don't worry for now about endorsements. LinkedIn is changing how they approach endorsements so that they may be valuable in the future. So that's kind of a changing thing right there. This is one that will help you with thematic consistency. So what I mean by thematic consistency is when someone looks at Rebecca's profile, they will see that she is a member of the Society of Human Resources Management, affectionately known as SHRM, my favorite professional association name, SHRM. If you join professional associations on LinkedIn, you'll start getting their posts, their advisories. You'll start getting familiar with the lingo of your target field. And when a recruiter or hiring manager goes to her profile, they'll be like, yeah, she's really, this is her thing, isn't it? Yeah, she's really done her research here. Take the webinars that LinkedIn itself offers. There are tons of webinars on how to use LinkedIn all over YouTube and all kinds of places. These are the webinars that I think are most valuable because they're taught by LinkedIn and they're always adding new bells and whistles. Part 1 is how to set up your profile. Part 2, that's where the gold is, engaging with your LinkedIn network. While you're in the job search process, I think you should take that maybe as often as every month. Then use LinkedIn to search for SPU alumni. It's really 117. I realize a lot of you have to go at 120, and I apologize. When I practice this, I got it done in 15 minutes. So if you do have to go, I won't be offended. This is your golden key, as I mentioned, is using LinkedIn to search for SPU alumni in your target field of occupation. And then get feedback about your profile as you go through and from the people you're meeting with so that your profile matches the jobs that you want to get. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on resumes because you're going to get a lot of help on your resume from the Center for Career and Calling. So I just put up here some of the key attributes that you need to think about. The most important thing for you to know is that when I first became a career coach in the late 90s, recruiters spent between 24 and 30 seconds looking at a resume. Now they only spend 6 to 10 seconds. So what that means is remove extraneous stuff that is not relevant to the jobs you're looking for. I've also given you in this packet, which has a sample resume in it, something I call resumes, verbs, and numbers. What you really want to try to do is weave quantification into your resume. Because when you put numbers in your resume, it anchors the reader in the facts and it makes them remember you. I also want you to try and be conscious of thinking about not just the job description elements of things you've done, but what your accomplishments were. So this is a job description item, entered in Excel, sales figures. This is an accomplishment. Is someone else coming in? Yeah, so we should talk about. These are some great places for you to go to figure out how to outsmart applicant tracking systems. And you can post them. Yes. So maybe along. Oh, okay. Shall I just skip right to the good things? At the end?
Yeah, do it.
I'll do it. Cover letters, networking, informational meetings, rostering strategy. And you can also look at your practice. Preparing for job interviews. Okay. Managing communications. Okay, this is the good news. There are 2 pieces. One is that most people don't work every aspect of this process. You actually work every piece of this process, you'll land a fabulous job. And the other piece of good news is that you have amazing resources right here at SPU. All of these things that SPU does. So thank you for coming today. Let's make a peanut butter sandwich.